The diner clock ticked past midnight, and the quiet hum of a coffee machine was the only sound that filled the small roadside diner outside El Paso. A single dad named Jack Harper, a man with tired eyes and a soldier's posture, wiped down the counter for the last time that night. He wasn't just a cook. He was a father raising a 10-year-old daughter, Lily, who sat in the back booth doing her homework, humming softly to herself. To the locals, Jack was just another veteran trying to build a normal life after the war. But to the world that had forgotten him, he was once a name whispered in fear, the Ghost, Delta Force's most legendary operative who disappeared after a mission that went terribly wrong. That night, a black convoy of SUVs appeared from the desert darkness, their headlights slicing through the fog. The rumble of engines broke the silence, and Jack's instincts immediately flared. He knew trouble when he heard it. The Mexican cartel had been spreading across the border, taking over small towns, extorting businesses, and making examples of those who refused. And tonight, they had chosen the wrong diner. 5 armed men stepped out first, their tattoos marking their allegiance, their arrogance marking their fate. The leader, known as El Toro, pushed through the diner door with a gold pistol in hand and a cruel smirk. "You must be the man who owns this place," he said, tapping the counter. "From now on, you pay us for protection. You refuse, your little girl becomes our problem." Jack's hands froze over the rag he was holding. For a moment, he didn't move. He didn't speak. The tension thickened, and even the clock seemed to stop ticking. Then, calmly, Jack looked up, his eyes cold, calm, and full of something the men couldn't name. "You really don't want to do this," he said softly. The cartel members laughed. They didn't know who they were talking to. They saw only a quiet man in an apron. They didn't see the Delta Force patch tattooed beneath his sleeve, or the scars from missions that never made it into history books. Lily peeked from behind the booth, fear in her small, trembling hands as she clutched her stuffed bear. Jack gave her a subtle nod, the same signal he used in combat to mean stay down, stay safe. The leader slammed his gun on the counter. "You think you're tough, viejo? Let's see what kind of man you really are." Before the words finished echoing, Jack moved. In one motion so fast it was almost invisible, he grabbed the man's wrist, twisted, and disarmed him. The gold pistol clattered to the floor. The others reached for their weapons, but Jack was already moving like a shadow. Years of training flooded back, the rhythm of breathing, the sound of chaos, the clarity of survival. He ducked, struck, and turned the room into a storm. Coffee mugs shattered, chairs splintered, and bodies hit the floor. In less than 30 seconds, 5 men were down, groaning in pain. Jack stood over them, not a drop of sweat on his brow, his voice calm as ice. "Tell your boss," he said, "the Ghost says this town is off limits." But it wasn't over. Within an hour, headlights lit up the desert again, more trucks, more men, and this time, heavily armed. The diner windows rattled with the approach. Jack knew this was no longer just about him. It was about every person the cartel had ever tried to break. He looked at Lily, kissed her forehead, and said quietly, "Get to the basement, baby. Remember what I taught you." As the front door exploded inward, smoke filled the diner. Jack moved like a phantom. His old gear, long buried in a box beneath the floorboards, was strapped back on, combat knife, sidearm, comm headset still marked, Delta. For the first time in years, the Ghost was back in action. What followed was chaos and precision blended together, one man against an army. The cartel men never saw him coming. He moved through the diner and into the surrounding desert, using the shadows, the sand, and the wind like old friends. Each shot he fired was calculated, each movement designed to protect his home and his daughter. When dawn broke, the desert was silent again. Dozens of cartel members lay unconscious or bound in the sand, and federal agents, called anonymously from a secure line, arrived to find the scene waiting for them. The legend they thought dead had delivered them their biggest victory in years. But by the time they searched for him, Jack Harper and his daughter were gone, vanished like ghosts into the horizon. Weeks later, news spread across the country. The diner was rebuilt, this time by townspeople who refused to be afraid anymore. On the wall behind the counter hung a single photo, Jack and Lily smiling, a handwritten note beneath it, "Freedom is worth fighting for." And somewhere far off, in a small border town, a man flipped a pancake for his daughter, living quietly under a new name. But those who knew the legend would tell the story for years to come, Of how a single dad, a quiet veteran, stood against darkness and reminded the world that true warriors never stop protecting the innocent. So if you're watching this story and it moved you, remember, strength isn't about weapons or war. It's about heart, love, and never backing down when it matters most.